Hello, 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 and welcome to the live stream. Happy Thursday, everybody. And yeah, it's great to be here again. Hopefully we can see some of your smiling faces. We have a wonderful guest today. He's been here a couple of times before. And before we get him on, just look at this beautiful profile that I'm using today. And it took me minutes to get it up and running. But we'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. But let's get our guest on. It is the one and only Martin McKenna. Martin, welcome back to the stream.
Yeah, welcome and hello from sunny Edinburgh again.
Is it sunny though?
Do you know, Neil, it actually is sunny for about the next hour. I think we'll have some sunshine, but that doesn't mean it's warm and sunny, which are two different things entirely. But yeah, it's been a beautiful spring day today.
Great. Well, that makes a change. It's not been too bad here as well in not so sunny Portugal. It's getting windy, but there you go. Anyway, so you've been here a couple of times, but obviously for people that haven't met you before or know a little bit about you, if you just let the people know who you are and what you do.
Okay, so yeah, I'm Martin McKenna, Ecamm FAM member for a long time, and love Ecamm and what you can do with it. I use it mainly for business and into Zoom and into Teams. That's the main business use case for Ecamm. So I have a fledgling YouTube channel, which is very disorganized, but I never thought I'd be doing sort of streaming or YouTubing or anything like that, because the idea was to use Ecamm to better go into my business arena. However, in the course of that, I've learned to use Ecamm very well, I think, and in a great deal of detail. And there's a number of things about it that I think, I think we could make it much, much easier for other people to use Ecamm. And one of the ways I believe that we can do that is by sharing profiles with people. So I've gone and created a whole bunch of profiles. And the idea, for those of you who don't know what an Ecamm profile is that a profile is like a folder which contains absolutely everything to do with your stream. So all of your scenes, all your camera placeholders, text placeholders, all the images you're using, absolutely everything. Now, normally with Ecamm, you turn it on and you start from a blank screen, and you can put shapes on and backgrounds and things like that, but it's all up to you. It can be a right pain in the neck to line things up and organize them all in the right places. So I just thought, wouldn't it be easier than rather start from a blank, that if you started from a pre-formatted profile, which has got everything in it, so that you can get up and running literally within minutes and create something that looks really nice and that you can then go tweak. And I think the phrase that I use for it is ready mix profiles, a bit like going out and buying a cake mix. If you don't want to bake a cake right from scratch and get all the sort of pinch of cocoa and a pinch of baking powder and weigh out all the ingredients, but you would rather just get a cake mix and add a couple of eggs and then a bit of oil and then put your decoration on the top, that's what these profiles are like. So they're not start from scratch. They are easy bake cakes that you can then decorate yourself, but they are very, very quick to use, and you can get something very impressive very, very quickly. So that's the principle. I've called my store Stream Profiles, and there's a whole load of other stuff in there as well, like motion backgrounds and transitions and all sorts, but that's not really where I'm focusing at the moment, because it was a bit of a brain dump, throw everything at the store. But the thing I've been concentrating over the last month on is profiles, and in particular, profiles for interview mode. So that's where I've got to at the moment. I've shared a couple of profiles with Neil over the past few weeks, and hopefully he's going to show you how he's played about with them and how easy they are to use, because last time I did all the talking on the stream, so I thought, I can throw the ball over the fence to Neil.
No worries. Absolutely. Well, Martin's been incredibly busy with a lot of these profiles that he's been creating, and this one that you're seeing right now is one that he's created recently and sent it over to me. I'll just say a couple of hellos real quick as well. So we have Photo Walks said hello. Let me just click this in here. Oh, and why does that always happen to me? It always... These placeholders sometimes. I don't understand it because I created one. There you go. All right. Well, anyway, hello, Photo Walks TV says hello to you as well, Martin. So, yeah, so Martin has actually created this particular profile. And this is the link of where you can go and get his profiles. I'll show you, first of all, his website, where you can go and grab them. I'll just go into the site and show you a couple of things. And then I'll go into live demo mode and show you what an actual profile looks like. And how I like how you blew that up. How did you do that? Well, I just zoomed in. I'll show you that in a second. We're in live demo mode here with some of the things. But yeah, definitely. There's a few things that we can tweak and change on these profiles. But let me go to Martin's website first. Let me go there. So this is Martin's website. Beautiful colors there. And you can see that it's categorized with profiles. We've got some transitions, motion backgrounds, and all kinds of good stuff. Now, he's actually created a couple of free profiles that you can go and click on and get them straight away. Each profile has a few snapshots to show you the type of, who is that guy there? To show you a few things of what it would actually look like as you go through each of the various scenes. So it's pretty cool that you get a good look and feel and flavor of what you're buying before you buy. And in this particular case, it's free. So you can try before you buy, which is great. And it's fair to say that Martin has been extremely busy and making a ton of these. This is one of my favorites, by the way. I really like this one. I might actually go and buy this one and tweak it and play with it because there's so many. But Martin's created so many different types of profiles now. It's super easy for you to go and just grab the profile of your choice, bring it in and start being super productive straight away. So let me just take another look at some of these. We've also got some backgrounds. So if you are happy to create some of your own profiles as well, or you want to tweak one of Martin's and bring in some additional backgrounds and transitions and overlays, he's basically built everything for you to make it super easy. He even has a bunch of lower thirds. Check that out. So, you know, lower thirds are really prominent in lots of videos for either showing a call to action or somebody's name or whatever it might be. You don't have to build them. You don't even have to create them. You can just download them. And I know, I think, Martin, some of your profiles actually do come with some lower thirds ready to go, right? In some of your logos and things like that.
Yeah, so there's various different ones there. So at the moment, the ones I've concentrated are on for interview mode. Those ones have got sort of fixed lower thirds on, for want of a better description. But there is also a profile on there which has got everything you could think of for stream. So countdown timer right through to screen sharing and iPhone sharing and a whole different bunch of lower thirds in there and everything. And there will be more appearing over time, but there is that free downloadable profile for lower thirds, and you just can go and grab it and play about with them. And the beauty of things like that is they've been designed so you can do things like extend them as well to add in further information. There's a couple of tricks with lower thirds if you're building them with Ecamm, and that is that you want to build them all to a single anchor point. Otherwise, when you do a fly in, what you'll find is that different bits will fly in at different points in time, and you'll get a little sort of staggered image coming in. So yeah, there's a couple of tricks going on there to get them to work properly, but it saves you going out to Keynote or to another package to go do your lower thirds. You can do them all in Ecamm.
Makes perfect sense, and they're really good. Let's just get a couple of comments in. Let's see if this one works. Bring in a comment from John. Woof, that disappeared. See, I haven't set this up properly, clearly, because I didn't have a lot of time. So let me just bring this one in here. It should fit there. And you're absolutely right. Whoops, these profiles are absolutely gorgeous. And Martin has been pretty prominent on the Facebook group for Ecamm recently just to showcase some of these. And every time he makes an iteration, we see that there is a new profile that's available. There is a perspective on here. Let me change this. There you go. Don't know why there was a perspective on that. I've been tweaking and messing around. This is the problem, you see. Have a look at these things before you go.
Quick story about perspective for you. I was looking at a whole bunch of things that I'd done, and suddenly I noticed that, in fact, it was very much like this profile. I noticed that down in the bottom corner, that the little text box wasn't quite lining up with my image. And I thought, well, I spent ages trying to get it lined up. And then I eventually realized that because I'd been playing about with the perspective feature, I left a tiny bit of perspective on both the camera and the placeholder image, which meant I was never going to get them lined up. So, but it took me about half a day to realize, oh God, I haven't left any perspective on this. Oh, I have. And it was set to something like 7, which is a tiny amount. But I was just noticing, why can't I get these to snap to the grid? Just enough to drive me bonkers.
Yeah, so, and that's the thing, right? Yeah, just enough, just enough.
Turn it off.
Yeah, turn it off. That's the main thing. So Martin, as I said, has sent me this profile. So I'll just go into live demo mode and show you just a couple of things that I did and show you what the profile actually looks like. So when you get it and so on. Got another message coming in. Hello, Gretchen. Good morning to you. We are doing all right. We're doing fine, thank you. We're just going to show you some of the little things that Martin, I say little things, lots of things that Martin's been doing over the last few weeks. And I'll show you right now just how the profile comes in to Ecamm and what I did to change it and what I did to mess up the chat, you know, things like that. So let's go into live demo mode. Let's bring this here. I feel like it's a Friday. Where's Doc? Anyway, so as you can see, I've made it so it's hopefully a little bit easier to see. There's lots of windows going on here. But typically, when you get a profile, on the left-hand side, you're going to get a bunch of scenes down here. Let me just get my mouse working. Let's just get Pro Mouse on here. If it works, give me a second, because Pro Mouse has been prone to not work. Let's turn it on. Let's see if it's going to work. Of course it doesn't. 1 second. I have to quit it. I have to run it again. Does anybody have a different alternative to Pro Mouse? I know I keep complaining about it every time I use it, but it's fine. And then it just stops working. It's the Zoom that stops working. So anyway, here we go. Here are all the default scenes that we have from Martin. So you can see there is a bunch of scenes, whether it be a single guest, 2 guests, and so on. So you get many more scenes than you would probably need for your production. But the beauty of the profiles is that you can be selective in terms of what you want to use. And what I did is for this particular production today, I only really wanted to have 2 or 3 scenes. If there was another guest coming in, then I've got one prepared ready. And then I programmed all these into my Stream Deck. But as you can see, if I open up this folder here, and Martin's very good at organization. So each of these profiles, each of these scenes within the profile are contained within folders, which is good practice. You should be putting everything in folders and making it easier to navigate. So we've got one that's a solo guest, for example. I'll switch to that. Solo guest 3. And all these are sort of pre-programmed ready. So you've got guest soloed scenes ready. And then we've got obviously 3 guests. If another guest was to come on, another 2 guests there. So all these are great placeholders. And I did not really have to do a ton of work for this when I was basically getting it up and running. I just simply did a couple of things. One, I changed all the letters for the names. So to do that, let me just show you. So I've got my host and guest scene here right now. And in the overlays panel, everything is organized quite beautifully again by Martin. So to make it really easy for us to find out what we're changing. So obviously here I'm the host, and to change the letter, you just click on the little gear menu, edit text, and then I can just change it to whatever I want. I'm just obviously going to keep it as my initial for now. So when you're getting your guests ready and you're getting your production ready, it's a simple case of just going into each of the respective overlays, which are in various containers. You can group them up like this. Obviously with Martin coming in, he's a guest. So we can go into that and change that very easily to whatever initial of the guest is. And as Martin was pointing out to me before, there's a really easy way as well of just making sure that the letters sit perfectly center within the placeholder. As you mentioned, and I didn't know this, that some letters behave differently in terms of spacing within Ecamm. So for this particular case, what we did was we just unlocked this particular guest folder here. It's all linked together. So if you move the letter, the placeholder and the background will move as well for that. And then you just highlight the M here, and then you just move it around until you see the blue line in the center, which gives you that positioning. And of course, we want everything to be lined up and looking good. So that's the way you do it on here. Another thing that you can do with these profiles, which is super good, is that if you go into the overlays, you'll see that you have a number of different predefined color overlays to change the look and feel. So the one I'm using right now is this one called Color Block Background. If I just hide it, it's going to be obviously dark. And I just tweak this to change it to my respective colors. So for this one, you can just hit the gear menu here, and you can see there's a gradient fill on it. So there's sort of a darker to lighter purple on this gradient fill. I've just tweaked the colors for me, but you can obviously just click on a color, change it to whatever you want. Don't ask me to design your profiles because obviously all my colors will look messy. But that said, you can also obviously change the gradient as you would normally do for any of the fills and backgrounds that you have within Ecamm. But Martin's obviously taken this to another level because all these are ready for you, pre-programmed. So I'm going to remove that one, and I'm just going to cycle through a couple of the gradients that's already available. So all I'm doing is just showing and hiding some of the respective backgrounds that Martin's already created. So if we click on this one, you get a nice sort of dark blue color. This one here is a bit more flashy with its pink and yellow. And there's all different ones. I think, Martin, you try to match some of the Ecamm colors as well, right, with the respect to what they use in their color palettes and so on. We've got another gradient fill here. I particularly like this one. I might leave this one in a second. But you can see that you can go in, and if you just show basically how this is working, it's just a background asset that's been created. And then each of the ones as well, you can apply a tint and blend to the background. And a tint and blend is, think of it as another color overlay that you can tweak and change the colors. If I was to remove this tint and blend here, you can see that that's the actual background image that Martin has provided for us. And then the tint and blend will give you a different flavor in terms of adding additional colors to it. So in this particular case, it's a rectangle overlay, and he's created a particular fill. And changing the color of this fill will obviously change the color of the respective overlay, if I've got it enabled, by the way, which I think I have. Let me find the tint and blend. Yeah, there. So you can see just changing the color to a green has given it a different blend and a different flavor. So you can just, again, tweak the colors even further to match your branding, to matching your style, or you can make it as simple as you want by just disabling these tint and blends and the colors and keeping it black and white, whatever you particularly want. So there's no real end to the possibilities of the color schemes and the changes and things like that. But what is interesting and what's easy for me is that I can just go in and tweak and change whatever I want very quickly. I have not had to build any of these scenes. I've not had to build any of these overlays. I've not had to put placements for the guest or anything like that. I've obviously changed my Creator Cafe name for this particular live stream. I've changed the font and the text size, and that's it. And then you just have to reposition the name of your text wherever you want it to be, and then you're good to go. So it's that simple, right? And if I spent a little bit more time with my overlays for chats and things, then I wouldn't have messed it up at the beginning. But you see the point. It's very, very easy. And good practice is, what I did is before I pull this profile into Ecamm, and you simply do that by double clicking and the profile loads automatically, always make a copy of the profile, because if you do happen to mess it up, delete something by mistake, you've always got the profile available to you. And I wanted to ask you about that actually, Martin. So if people do lose their profile completely, and they've purchase one from you, I guess the download is available for a period of time, right, before it expires, or they could just email you and say, hey, help, I've lost something, or something like that.
Yeah.
Right?
I think the answer is I don't know. I would have assumed. Well, there's just a couple of answers to that, isn't there? If you've made a duplicate of the profile, then you should have the profile. But if you have some calamitous hard disk drive failure or something like that, then obviously you can mail me and let me know. But I would have thought Sellify would have forced you to have an account and that you can go and download it again.
Yeah, I think so.
Because nearly every other platform I can think of would do that. So,
Right.
but I don't know. If there's any giant problems, then I can do what I did for
It's worth
Neil
seeing.
before I had this out, which was just set up a Dropbox transfer of a profile for you. So,
Yes.
so yeah, we could. It's early days with that particular platform, Sellify, for me. We occasionally have found that people don't get a link through for a product once they've gone through the free process. And for instance, I know that happened to Neil, but Neil changed his email address and suddenly it was happy. So, there might be the odd glitch in the platform that I don't know about yet because it's literally brand new to me,
Yes.
putting stuff up there. So yeah, we'll have to wait and see on that one.
No worries. We have another comment, I think. Coming up, I'll make sure it comes in. Oh yeah, hello. Nice to see you. How are you doing? And I've just noticed the M on that screen is not lined up. So let's do it live. Why not?
Let's do it live.
Let's do it live. Let's go into live demo mode. You can see the scene here that we're talking about. So what I'm concerned about is the M is not in the center, and it has to be. So let's go and find the guest. So remember the thing that we did? We just unlock here. Unlink, sorry, so nothing moves, and then we just unlock the letter M, and then I hover over the M and wait for the blue line to be in the center, like that. Bingo, done. Lock everything back up, and now it looks normal again. And that's how easy it is. Now, obviously, as we said, different letters may change and move around depending on what they are. And that's how easy it is to tweak that. What else have I had to do today? That's basically it to set this profile up. It's been pretty straightforward. So did you want to show a few things that you've been potentially working on? Then we can go back to your website and look at some of the other things.
Yeah, I'll tell you what we can do. I can show you a profile I've been working on today, which is kind of similar to what you're looking at the moment, but I can't stop tweaking things. Once I've started to look at things, I think, oh, that would be better if we did this or we did this. So it's kind of a learning process for me, but it is one where I go round in circles and hopefully getting things better each time. But it is a learning process.
No problem.
And hopefully other people can benefit from that learning process as well. So if you want to stick me onto full screen,
I will move my banner.
Let you take your banner off. I'll bring my banner back on. So what we're doing, folks, here is Neil's got a profile and I've got a profile. So we've sort of layered one over the other. So I have to make sure I have to turn mine off to make sure that Neil, mine isn't showing over Neil, because it has elements for these banners which show in all scenes. So I'm just going to show you a couple of scenes here and then explain here what I'm trying to do. So here I've got my name down one side of the screen. Now the reason for that is that if you think about it, all of our scenes are wide by nature. So suddenly I thought, well, actually being as the scenes are wide by nature, maybe what I should be doing is, rather than try and have everything crammed underneath in terms of name placeholders, I'll put them at the side, because there's plenty of room at the side on the screen. I see a lot of designs where they've got massive great placeholders or fly-ins for things at the bottom, and then they're cramming things up on the screen, in particular when you get to a lot of guests. So let's move to one with a lot of guests on. Whereas here, I still got my guests at a good size, but you can clearly read all of their names as well, albeit they're on the side. So from a design perspective, I've reduced the bottom banner to as small as possible. I have maximized the screen estate for the video, but still given some space around the back for all these images. So in this particular case, I've got a bunch of different backgrounds on this one because each of the different profiles has got 10 different backgrounds to choose from. So if I just randomly show you a couple of these ones, if I chose this background instead, one click and I've completely changed how that look and feel was from the last time. And Neil mentioned the tint and blend. I can change the tint and blend, and that's very subtle on that particular case. There's also a blur in the background, which does two things. One is if I take off the blur, things will become a bit sharper in the background. But if I put the blur back on, what it also does is when I've got something like a comment placeholder, so let's bring in 3 guests and a comment, then actually the blur in the background makes the comment come through a bit clearer. So even though I've got some very fine text on there, it's coming a little bit sharper because there's some blur going on the background. Now you could have done that on just the placeholder itself, but I've chosen to do it on the whole screen because it also makes things a bit more subtle in the background. So let's choose another background which is a little less subtle, because when I'm putting these things together, I do like to choose one at least background that's a bit more mad than the other. So this is a kind of Blade Runner-esque cityscape background, for want of a better description, but I'm going to take the blur off that one and it becomes a lot sharper. And if you look at the text carefully, the text becomes definitely a bit easier to read when you do have the blur in the background. So I've been going through today and creating these ones which are slightly different from what's already there, but obviously there's going to be some similarities between them in that what you're trying to do is getting placeholders for you and your guests on the screen all at the same time. Now, literally nobody has seen this profile before because I've only just finished doing it, and now what I need to do is go through the whole profile and check that all of the little locks are in place and I've got all the text correct and all the folders correct. Neil kindly said I organise things really brilliantly. Well, only because I have to. Normally when I'm designing these things, it says copy of copy of copy of copy of, everything is all over the place. And then when I've finished the design, I then go back and reorganize everything into folders and then rename everything so that as naming conventions go, you know that everything's under guest one. So in this particular profile, if I come up to guest one, I can click on guest one and make guest one disappear because everything is in one profile. So if you can imagine bringing guests onto the screen, if I wanted to be, here's me talking away about comments, let's bring in Sheena, I can just move on to another scene where it brings Sheena on and reveals that particular element. What you can also do with these scenes, and Neil has already done this today, but he didn't mention it to you because he's obviously a little bit shy about showing off. But what Neil actually did was take one of these placeholders, and for instance, where I have the comments, and he put the screen share into that particular area. So you could do that. You could put an agenda in, you could put a different picture in, or you could put a different video in, and you could still maintain this sort of layout of you and your guests and have additional elements in by just removing something like that placeholder comment and putting in something else instead. So that's what I'm getting to at the moment. I need to finish this profile off this evening, and then it will be on the store, and hopefully I'll do some sort of launch type thing tomorrow, but we'll see how that goes. For the moment, I'm going to come back to this profile. I'm going to switch off my banner, and then that will let me be back to normal and go on to the Creator Cafe.
There you go. See, super simple. I will show you that. I did forget about that actually. That's old age. That's not modesty. But let's go back to what you were talking about. So this is where Martin was talking about having a additional profile, additional scene where I wanted to have his website. And all I did was, as he said, was just to take a screen share overlay and just added this straight into the scene. I just duplicated the existing scene that we had here, like the guest share, for example, and just tweaked that. It wasn't the guest share, it was the, which one was it now? Might have been the guest. It was the guest and comments or something like that. It doesn't really matter. You get the idea that you can just tweak any one of these and then basically put it in there. I can't even remember which one it was now. But anyway, it was one with a guest and comments, I think, solo guest and comments, and then just added the screen share in there. But you were saying that you are going to add more profiles to your site. I was going to ask you, are you looking at having one master profile that would have everything in it, including all the different overlays, all the different sort of look and feels and things like that? Or would that be something that you're not considering, like having one master profile with everything in there?
I think
like at a greater expense, of course, for people, but
I think a master one would get very scary. It could also get very large as well. And one of the things that I'm sure most people don't realize this, but when you open up a profile in Ecamm, it loads up everything for you into memory effectively. So if you're one of those people like I used to be, who has a massive long profile that is your play profile, for want of a better description, where you're playing about creating stuff, if it's got loads of videos in and things like that, Ecamm will load all of that up, and it will do that every time, and just so it's ready to use the stuff. So I think that technically there are good reasons not to put everything into one giant profile, especially being as you probably will then make lots of copies of it and then not remove all the things and hide them, and so it could get very cumbersome very quickly. So I think we'll probably stick to different use cases. What I would be interested to hear from people is what use cases they think I should be looking at first. So should it be presentations? Should it be just general live streams? What should it be? I'll tell you what it's not going to be. It's not going to be TikTok, Instagram, and vertical video, because I have never watched Instagram Reel or TikTok in my life, and therefore I have no idea really what's involved in those, and I'll leave it up to Anna and Fulgens and Paul Dixon and people like that to specialize in those particular areas. It's just not my thing. So
yeah, and I think you've got much less to play with. Sorry to interrupt. You've got much less to play with within the vertical video formats. You're very restricted in terms of what you can actually show based on all these comments that are flowing up underneath. It's a very sort of modular view where it's just like they've got modules of text coming flying up all over the place, and your actual window of where you can actually see yourself and show anything is very small. So it doesn't really lend itself to any great design. I've been playing around with some vertical stuff just for my own sort of shorts type thing, and it's like, well, I'll just go full screen, and then whatever's at the bottom, I'll just make sure the comments come in at the right place, and that's it. There's not really a ton of things that you can do with it. I think what you're doing and your skills is perfectly aligned to this type of workflow. It makes it much easier, I think.
Well, I think one of the other reasons for doing this as well is we all know, and you may know more than I do about this, Neil, but we know that the Zoom integration is coming soon for Ecamm. So for me, one of the reasons for looking at the sort of interview mode side of things is if I create a whole bunch of profiles here and Zoom mode comes along, then literally I can have Zoom invites to people, as I understand it, and they'll be able to come in, ask the guests in any of the placeholders that we are currently seeing in the designs that I have. And therefore, we're revolutionizing Zoom meetings so that they look completely and utterly different by just using these sort of placeholders. And of course, all the branding is easy to do as well, because as you've shown, you can change colours, but you can drop in your logos and things like that as well. And I think, as Neil and I both know, I think there's other things that you could be doing as well. I think there's a lot of clever stuff to do with the ability now to be able to send your camera out to other sources. So I think we can do some real clever stuff with Keynote and bringing in multiple images that then appear in Zoom, and it will blow people's minds once we start playing about with that. But I guess there'll then be placeholders for that as well. So I'm preparing for Zoom to arrive, and assuming that when it does, it will be a bit of a revolution. And I don't think people realise quite how much of a revolution it's likely to be as well. Yeah.
I think the ability to have multiple cameras coming in, multiple guests coming in via camera overlays via Zoom. As far as I understand, the Zoom integration, apart from all the bells and whistles, from a visual perspective, a Zoom guest will come in as a camera overlay. So as we're doing right now, where you are a guest, as a camera overlay, the placeholders that you've already created will be more than sufficient to support any Zoom integration. I don't know if there is going to be a limit on the number of guests that you can have. As you know, in Zoom, it just gets ridiculous where you've got pages and pages and pages of people. Mm-hmm. So I think we have to be sensible as well, because obviously it's going to be using Zoom's back end, but still people are coming into your Ecamm production. So what that looks like in terms of processing power on your machine, internet bandwidth constraints, things like that, I don't know. But it is exciting because it opens up, as you said, many more avenues now to show the power of Ecamm, the way that you can automate your scenes, have good looking profiles as we've got today, and then put them in a Zoom meeting, put them in Teams with the virtual camera integration system wide now, which will be coming out in 4.2. It's already in beta. That's what I'm using right now. So even your FaceTime calls with your friends and family could look completely different because you'd be using types of profiles. So if you think about what you'd be using these profiles for as a use case, there's many things that you can do as well. So let's go back and have a look at the comments just real quick. If I go to the chat. How do you show the topic overlay work? If you're referring to, let me go back to host and guest. If you're referring to this is just an overlay, a text overlay with a QR code for Martin's website, if that's what you're referring to. But if there's something specific, the Phil Armstrong Show, then let us know if that was the answer to your question. And George says, I run Zoom meetings and webinars for my job. So excited to see how the Zoom integration will work. Yeah, us too, George, because we're from corporate backgrounds back in the day. I say back in the day, it's not that far away. And Zoom is ubiquitous, right? And there's lots of, I guess there's a perception thing with Zoom as well. I won't get into too much of that, but what I mean is that when I've talked to people who are recording podcasts, video podcasts specifically, they seem to be very unprepared when they're coming to an Ecamm production. They feel because they've been sort of blessed by Zoom, they feel they can just turn up with no headphones, no microphone, just bad lighting, and it just seems like Zoom is very forgiving with regards to the look and feel, and people are just almost like, okay, well, it's Zoom and that's what it looks like. Now you get profiles like this where things are going to be looking much better, much more higher end from a production value. I think it's going to open a lot of people's eyes, particularly if we're using Ecamm with Zoom. The people are going to be going, well, hang on a minute, how are you doing this? Because Zoom right now is a fixed, rigid layout, as I mentioned recently in one of my sort of videos for Ecamm. So this really is taking it to setting up your webinar, your production, whatever you're doing, to a much higher level. And you're going to get more noticed, particularly in the corporate world, if you are presenting something professional looking like this, as opposed to just having your standard Zoom background with your children throwing themselves around in the background and cats and animals everywhere. So, things are going to be better. We have a few more comments coming in as well. Let me just check.
So, while waiting for the comments, a question for you then, Neil. I think one of the things that we know about Zoom in general, or the challenges, is that Zoom throttles down to the lowest denominator. So if somebody is watching on a hotspot in Indonesia on the beach, thinking, oh, I'm doing my bit for work here by tuning in while I'm on holiday, then actually what happens is that Zoom throttles down to that 360p or whatever it is that they're watching
Yeah.
on their phone. And then everybody sees things at that definition level. I'm kind of assuming if Ecamm effectively is hosting the meeting, then that's not going to happen. But even at the moment, I'm coming in at 720p in Ecamm, and you will be potentially at 4K, maybe, or dependent on what platforms we're streaming out to, maybe that's a bit less. As a network man, an engineer, how do you think that's all going to sit together, and what's the effect going to be? Will Zoom still cause us problems when somebody does that, or will that then disappear because they've come in via Ecamm?
I think if they're using the same Zoom backend, then the same rules may apply. So to your point, where you've got somebody on a very low bandwidth, spotty connection, that's going to degrade the performance, the look and feel, the video quality for everybody else on there. So I'd be interested to see if there's a way of doing that where you're almost forcing the resolution for the majority of the users on the call to be as high as possible. I know even with Zoom, even a paid for Zoom plan that I'm on, you only get up to 720p anyway, or 1080 if you're enterprise for the quality. So Zoom does some clunky stuff anyway. I mean, it's very low bandwidth with regards to the video thing. They've got a lot of compression on there. That's why it doesn't look as good, I think, sometimes as what we're doing today. So I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. I'm hoping they're going to be using the higher end sort of service from Zoom to be able to get that, because we've been asking for a while, can we have at least 1080p for guests coming into Ecamm? Because Ecamm uses a third-party service as well that provides what we're doing right now. And I know there is some processor overhead associated with having multiple streams coming in, plus a bandwidth constraint as well. So there's a few things to consider, but we're not asking for like 30 guests coming in 4K. Would be nice to have, let's maximize it to 4. Let's have 4 HD 1080p guests at a good resolution, and that's fine. If you want to do a webinar where you've got hundreds of people, then you shouldn't be using Ecamm for that anyway. You should be looking at Zoom, because that's what it's designed for. So I think we have to look at what Ecamm's use case is, where it fits within what you're trying to do. But I'm interested to see what you sort of create with regards to the keynote PowerPoint types presentation, because they can all take virtual cameras and they can all take live video coming in. So, and I have seen a teaser from you on the Facebook group, and I was intrigued, going, well, that is a really nice, elegant way of running through your slides and then bringing Ecamm back in, changing a slide, and then so on. So, I mean, a scene, respectfully, within Ecamm. So some good stuff. A few questions coming in. Let me get back to the chat. Phil is saying, how does your show topics scene work? I'm not sure what show topics scene. Does that make sense to you? Show topics scene. Is it, I mean, as we're flipping through the scenes now, we're showing these things. I mean, this is basically, but this is Martin's profile that he's sharing with us at the moment. So all these pre-canned views that you're seeing are all built into the profile already. And all I'm simply doing is, pressing buttons. I've been accused of that many times before as a computer engineer. That's all you do. You just press buttons, right? So that's all I'm doing right now. I'm just pressing buttons as I'm going through each of these scenes. So if you can give me a bit more clarity on what you're actually looking for and how you're asking things, that's fine. But why not go and take the plunge and go to Martin's website and download the free profile to start with. And I'll show you where that is real quick, and then I'll answer some more questions. Host and web share. So if you go to streamprofiles.selfie at store, you will see all these profiles here available from Martin. And this one in particular, there's some free ones. Is it this one here?
The pinky coloured one in the middle.
This
with pinky... just me on it.
Oh, this one. Right. So this is the free profile that you can download today. And as you can see, it's got multiple scenes already built in with some great overlays. And if you live in Edinburgh, you don't even have to change that. So that's how good it is. Right? So just keep in mind that you can do that as well. Let's go back to some more questions. Keeping you busy tonight. All right. Yeah, the 1080p on guest ISO feeds would be awesome. Yes, it is a restriction right now. I'm hoping that will change, but let's have a look. Tim also says, great looking profile, Martin. It is. It's a great profile. It's wonderful. Topic order to be covered on the podcast scene. Topic order to be covered. How did your show topics work? Scene, topic order on the podcast scene. I'm not getting that. Sorry, maybe I'm just being a bit slow today. It's been a long day, lots of things, but it's possible, of course. All right, so we've got scenes. You also mentioned about the profiles and being able to not having a huge profile, which I think is a good idea. I thought I'd ask the question about having a master profile, but I think the ability to be able to copy and duplicate the profile in the first place. I mean, I work for other people. They send me their profiles. So I've got a bunch of profiles in my Ecamm setup right now. And because I do different shows, I do a Creative Amplifiers podcast show. I also do, this live stream. I also have a profile specifically for recording YouTube videos. So I do a lot of pre-recorded material on YouTube. So I have a profile for each of those. And my handy dandy Stream Deck, this little thing here, which can't move now because it's stuck, basically has all the buttons associated for that as well. So with Martin's profile, I was going to ask you actually, have you considered doing a sort of a pre-canned Stream Deck profile with icons and buttons and things that lines with all the scenes that you've got?
I think the answer is that's a very good question or a very good idea. Once I stop fiddling about with the scenes, then it would be the time to create the Stream Deck profile, I suppose. But at the moment, I keep going round in circles with some of them and improving them slightly. So I think my focus is elsewhere at the moment. But I do think that's got great potential to do something like that.
Right.
And while I think about it, a question for you, technical question.
Okay.
With all these profiles, is there an easy way to delete a profile without going through and loading up each profile and then saying delete current profile?
Yes. So, well, it's a yes or no answer. Yes, you can go into Ecamm's file system. It's called a plist. It's a profile list. So in the Mac, there is a profile list for your profiles. It's called shows, and I'll send you the link. It's not for the faint-hearted because you don't have a reference name labeled. So when you go into the folder structure, you will see a bunch of random generated numbers under your plist file, and each of those random numbers is associated with a profile that you've got already in Ecamm. I'm not going to go show you the file, but what I will show you is what I'm referring to in terms of numbers of profiles, and I'll answer some questions in a second. So here are all my profiles. This is what you're referring to, right? It gets ridiculous. It gets very unruly when it comes to sort of bringing and changing these profiles. So typically you would have to go in one at a time, and then you would have to delete it. So there is a plist file in your Mac that you can go in, and if you actually open those plist files, it's an XML construct. It's just an XML text file, and you will have the name associated with it. So you could find it, but this is what I do. I get all the profiles that I want. I load the ones that I'm interested in. I'll export them to a folder. I'll go into that plist file. I'll delete everything, and then I'll bring them back in. So that's the simplest way of doing it. I did ask the team whether it'd be a nice way of just, like check boxes against each profile and then just delete all, select all, delete, something like that. So that would be an option. Couple of questions have come in then. So now I understand. Sorry, Phil. So you were talking about the agenda profile. So the agenda profile is available on Martin's website. Does the free profile come in with any agendas, or that's a separate profile altogether, isn't it, I think?
There's a free agenda profile on the site.
Right. Okay.
So
I'll show you that in a second then. And hey, David, thanks for joining. So there's a caveat to this. Your profile does include all assets apart from video. So the workaround for that is create a... There's a bit of background noise from your side as well, Martin. I'm not sure what that is. Oh, and your machine's going... Okay, no, right. I'm going to mute you for a second. So David, the answer to your question is yes. So everything will come across in your profile, apart from, I think, your destinations, but your stream size, resolution, and things like that. And then also your assets will come across. So any static images, PNG files, things like that, but videos don't. So the key is convert the videos to a WebM file, and those WebM files will come across in your stored profile. So when you export the profile and bring it back, everything will work fine. Now, when I brought this profile in from Martin, I didn't have any missing assets. So everything that he's created is fully pre-populated and comes across straight away. So super easy. Are you back? You're back, but looking thinner again.
I'm looking.
For some reason.
I'm not quite sure what's happened there, but I every now and again, my audio goes all crackly on my Mac speakers.
Yeah.
And the only way I can get it back is switching off to another speaker source and then switching back again. So I've no idea why that happens. So, but it does. So apologies for the noise.
No problem. David said all his videos are WebM files anyway. So cool. Yeah, it's super easy, David, to do that. Not a problem. So let me just show you where this agenda profile is. This mysterious agenda profile. Let me go to host and web share. All right, let's go back to stream profiles. Okay. And help me navigate here because of my eyesight. Your agenda profile.
Scroll down a little bit on the left-hand side, third one down.
Yeah, so this one here is the agenda profile that you can get free from Martin's website. It contains a basic set of agendas. Now, in his other profiles, the paid for ones, there are other agenda templates associated with that as well. And I think just based on what you've been working on, you've almost exhausted all options, right, in terms of what you could do with agendas. Maybe you have some others up your sleeve in terms of fixing those things, but yeah.
Mm-hmm. I think there'll be some more coming. That one has actually got animated agendas in it as well. So as you go down the agenda, bullet points will animate in and out or flash in and out or whatever. But it's kind of a how to do agendas with animations. So I probably will put some more out there because it's something that lots and lots of people want. It's just simple agenda profiles, and it's not immediately apparent how you do it, but you can do it within Ecamm, and you can do it without a Stream Deck as well. You can use hotkeys or multiple scenes to go through an agenda. Multiple different ways of doing that, but you could literally have mini animations on some of them, which and turn out to be mini WebM files or overlays or whatever, to reveal bits of the agenda one at a time, or move a block down on the screen and reveal, or highlight with different colors a bullet point plus the agenda, and then low light it plus the agenda, and just go through. So actually there's a lot of different ways that you can run an agenda within Ecamm without resorting to bringing in what people have previously done, which is bring in PowerPoint or Keynote and run an agenda off that. No, you can do it pretty easy in Ecamm, but it's a little bit tricky to build it up in the first place. But go download that profile, have a play. If you don't understand it, then there'll probably be some paid ones coming along soon. But and I probably have done an explanation of it somewhere in the Facebook group. I'm sure if you searched on my name and agenda, it would probably bring up me talking you through how to do those animated agendas in Ecamm.
I think you've also created a hashtag, right? Screen profiles. That's one where you don't get it working.
That's right.
Stream profiles, where you can find it. Great. We have a couple of more questions. So, what is the easiest way to convert MP4 to WebM? So, Shutter Encoder, and Gretchen has already said that. So, Shutter Encoder is a free program. I don't know who's created it, but if you do a Google search for Shutter Encoder, not Andcoder, but Encoder. That is a free tool that will convert most of your files to any format that you want. It's super easy. And there's lots of instructions on the website of taking a video file and then creating it into a WebM. Interesting question here from David. Can you pull data from a Google Sheet in Ecamm? Can you pull data from a Google Sheet in Ecamm?
I think the answer is yes. So I haven't done it with Google Sheets, but I have done it with Excel. So I'm assuming what he means is if I've got Excel running somewhere and I make a change in the Excel spreadsheet, can I reflect that on Ecamm? And the answer is if you do a web widget, then as an overlay, then the web widget will update in real time with your Excel file. I'm kind of assuming it will do the same with Google Sheets, or literally you may need to press a button to refresh it, but it would do that. And I guess you could use that
actually.
Yeah, I mean, you could do, but again, you don't need to because you can just do them in Ecamm only,
right?
And they will look they'll actually look better than they would do in Google versions of the product without going into another product. So
yeah, it is probably easier to do that, I think. Yes, and George says it's Shutter Encoder. So for those of you who want to know what that is the correct name of it. Hey Eileen, how's it going? Ecamm fam, yes indeed. Thanks for joining today. So let's see what else we've got. I'm trying to think what else I was going to cover. Those slimming pills are working really well for you today. I don't know what else to your camera. It just glitches. I'm sure. Are you connected via USB or a cam link?
No, well, what I did was change my sound settings. That's all I did. And suddenly it's changed my video settings. So I don't know why it has done that. I have had that happen on occasion. I am running the beta version off.
Yeah, I've never had that problem though. I don't know whether do you want to plug your camera out or something? I'll switch away for a second just so you get.
Yeah, you switch away and I'll swap out and then swap back in.
All right. So while Martin is reconfiguring his camera, really appreciate everybody stopping by today. Again, if you want to get these profiles from Martin's site, as I said, he has a couple of free profiles that you can play with right now. Download them, play with them. And the paid for profiles work in the same manner in terms of they have the same layout, they have the same structure. So once you're familiar with the free profile and you can tweak and change and do whatever you want with that, then obviously the next step is to get a more customized profile for yourselves, and you can add your own logos and color schemes and all that kind of good stuff. So it's really good. Let me just go back to the website while Martin's tweaking his camera. As you can see here, so it's Stream Profiles. You can just search that on the Selfie store, and he's got a bunch of different overlays, transitions, and so on. And some of Martin's profiles already come with transitions as well. They're not the stinger transitions that all the gamers and the cool kids like, but they are the transitions that obviously use a web component, a video component or a WebM component that does a nice soft wipe across those. Martin is back, looking like his normal self now. That's good. Thought I'd been on too much of the Slim Fast there for a second, but there you go.
Yeah, I ought to put the slimming pills up on the website as well. I'm sure that'd be a good seller.
Gretchen says we have to blame the glitches. We bring it on the sunspots. Okay. And David's point is the reason we have to use Google Sheets is someone else loads our agenda. Okay. So what you're saying is to get that updated in real time in Google Sheets and then bring it across into Ecamm. I mean, yeah, I don't know. I'll leave that to you, Martin, to work out whether that would be possible or not. But obviously, if you're doing some sort of collaboration where people are updating agendas and so on, and
I think in principle, I think that should work based upon very rudimentary tests that I did just to see whether I could change stuff in Excel. And this was a long time ago, actually.
Right.
And when the web widgets first came out, and I think from memory, I might needed to refresh the Excel spreadsheet or something like that. And then it just did a refresh for me, and everything came through. So
okay.
yeah, web widgets would be the thing to look at, and I would imagine that will work.
All right. Okay.
So
Well, thanks for that. We'll have to
yeah,
do some more testing.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully people could go play about with those profiles. And I think one of the other things that talked about with Neil is that I might come back and we might together have a play about with all of this new double cameras coming into Keynote, and how they could be used to get some really cool looking effects on the presentation, because I think we can achieve a bunch of these stinger type transitions within Ecamm by utilizing these facilities in a different way to the way that other people have done that in the past. Because you know, Alec Johnson, for instance, he does it all the time, but I know he's doing it in a entirely different way to the way that I'm proposing to do this. And it did occur to me today, maybe I should log into interview mode with 2 different Chrome windows, one that's showing Ecamm and one that's just showing my USB camera, so that when I logged onto interview mode, asked Martin 1 for want of a description, if I chose the source to be my USB camera, then I load on Martin 2 and I chose the source to be Ecamm, then you at your end would have been able to switch between the different profiles without me turning stuff on and off and things like that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, we'll have to test that out. I'm happy to try play around with that. Yeah, we should test it and record our record our findings. And if they're absolute rubbish, I won't share it. That's probably
no. It was your idea. If it was your idea, if that happens.
And if it works swimmingly, you'll just post it and say, I did this really good. We are at the top of the hour. In fact, we've been going for just over an hour, which is great. And we've had lots of great comments and interactions and fun. So one last time, for those of you who want to get these free profiles, get them now. Click on that QR code. Just scan it with your phone. I can't make it any easier for you than handing you the profiles myself. So go and check out Martin's profiles. He's got more in the works. I know he's got more in the works because this guy never stops tweaking and changing. And by the time we're around Creator Camp again, or this time next year, I think your site will be full of hundreds of different profiles. You may have to start retiring some. You know that, right? Once you've been messing around with them so much. And
well, there was a good reason. There was a good reason for asking you about whether you can get rid of profiles in bulk easily, and that's because I literally have got 100. There's 100 at least profiles sitting there in my list of profiles, and some of which I can't remember what they do anymore. So clearly, I can throw them in the bin. But I don't want to really have to go through and load up them all one at a time and then say delete current profile, delete current profile.
No, it's a pain. I'll show you the file, but just be careful to export everything first, because once they're gone, they're gone. That's it. Thanks, David. You're very welcome. Well, I'm saying you're very welcome. I mean, Martin's profiles.
Thanks for joining us, David. Yeah,
exactly. Thanks for joining us. I've done nothing apart from host the show. George, you're more than welcome. George, you're on every show. Every show that I turn up on, George is there. And George, you're like the stellar winner of all prizes. You won the prize yesterday, didn't you? Or one of the other prizes. So great stuff, George. Hopefully we'll see you next Monday on the Creative Amplifiers show, because we've got James Hicks coming up, which will be fun. Just a selfish plug there for my second show. But there you go. And Martin will be a guest on Creative Amplifiers coming up, I don't know, in a few weeks, something like that, because we're booked up now for our first season. We're taking a summer break, and then after that, we are done. One last comment, and then I will close it up. Oh, yes, you're planning on being there. Thank you, George. No problem. And Tim, you're more than welcome. And Eagle VP, thank you. I've forgotten your name. Sorry about that. When people use their business names and things, it's difficult to remember. I'm terrible at names. Great at faces, but, not that. So anyway, thank you so much, everybody, for joining. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks a lot, Martin. Thank you for all your hard work. It is really appreciated. And we do love seeing all these designs. I'm like curious, so what's he going to come up with next? And one of the things I really like about your latest design is that you've got that sort of, that nice shaped border, which is like an indented border. I was like I was like, How is he doing that? How is he doing that? So, you know, I'll talk to you offline about that anyway. Oh, Keith, thank you. That's your name. No problem. And thank you, Marcio, David, later guys as well. Yes, no problem. So, see you on the next one.
Oh.
Martin, if you want to stay around, I'll have a chat with you after this for a couple of minutes. And see you soon. Take care, guys.